Good morning. All right, we've seen Philip do our Mavatma. So everybody stand, stretch your arms, get ready, and we're going to do the Mavatma with Philip. Here we go.
Good morning and welcome to worship. All this month, we're digging deep to explore real-life artifacts that help us uncover the truth about Jesus. But first, kids, let's show the grown-ups our Mavatma, our memory verse of the month. Are you ready? In 3, 2, 1. You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. Jeremiah 29:13. Mavatma. Now that we've been reminded of what is good and true from the Bible, let's dig in and worship God together. We're glad you're here.
Let's sing together this morning. Rejoice, the Lord is King. Aren't you glad He's King and not us? Taking care of it all for us.
Rejoice, the Lord is King. Your Lord and King adore. Rejoice, give thanks and sing and triumph evermore. Lift up your heart, lift up your voice, rejoice again. I say, Jesus the Savior reigns, the God of truth and love. When He had purged our sins, He took His seat above. Lift up your heart, lift up your voice, rejoice again. I say, rejoice. His kingdom cannot fail. He rules o'er earth and heaven. The keys of death and hell are to our Jesus give. Lift up your heart, lift up your voice, rejoice again. I say, rejoice. Rejoice in glorious hope, our Lord and Judge shall come, and take His servants up to their eternal home. Lift up your heart, lift up your voice, rejoice again. I say, rejoice. Lift up your heart, lift up your voice, rejoice again. I say, rejoice.
Good morning, church family. It is such a beautiful morning. It's so good to see each and every one of you guys who are here in person, and those of you who are home on your couch being comfortable. I am glad you are here. My name is Martin Lilly. I am the student pastor here and also part of the front line, and I just want to once again welcome you to a time of worship. If this is your first time joining with us, or if you have a prayer request, please go to our Connect card. For those of you guys who are here in person, it is in the pew rack in front of you. Those of you guys who are online, there is a link to that, which is mayfieldroad.org/connect. And if you can go there, fill it out. If you have a prayer request, go there, fill it out so that we can pray with you and for you and connect with you. Also, thank you for your continued financial support to the ministries here at Mayfield Road Baptist Church. And I just want to remind you guys again the 3 ways that you can give. First is through our website by clicking the giving tab. Second is through your bank's bill pay, if you can set that up. And then thirdly, if you are here in person, as you exit later on in the service, there are baskets that you can place that there. So once again, welcome, 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 and let us continue to worship our God who lives in heaven.
Let's stand as we worship together. Christ is able. He calls us all. Come ye sinners. Come ye sinners, poor and needy. Come ye wounded, weak and worn. There's a harbor for the broken, where our homelessness are reborn. Come ye lost, afraid, forgotten, let your wandering souls find rest. At your heart's door he is knocking, for you his precious blood was shed. He is able, Christ is able still to save. Come ye sinners, poor and needy, sing to him our song of praise. Come ye ransomed and forgiven, come ye rescued from the grave. Rise and worship Christ our Savior, for the glory of his name. In the stillness of the morning, in the quiet of the dawn, praise will rise as darkness shatters, and the song goes on and on. He is able, Christ is able still to save. Come ye sinners, poor and needy, sing to him our song of praise. He is able, Christ is able still to save. Come ye sinners, poor and needy, sing to him our song of praise. Let's just thank him this morning for his salvation in our life. Thank you. Thank you. God's word with me. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by the new and living way open for us through the curtain, that is his body. And since we have a great priest over awesome God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with a full assurance of faith. He is able, he is able, Christ is able still to save. Of these sinners, poor and needy, sing to him a song of praise. He is able, Christ is able still to save. Of these sinners, poor and needy, sing to him a song of praise.
You know, when we sing that and we remember we have access to God to come to bring our request to him, we also are mindful and we remember that there's a lot of burdens, a lot that we have to carry. If you think about just all the things going on in our world right now, you know, there's a lot that we need to be praying about, a lot that we need to take before the Lord. I mean, you can think about in Haiti, the earthquake and just the devastation that's there and the recovery. And of course, with Martin, that's a personal connection with our church. We think about Afghanistan. Just yesterday, there's a report that went out from a journalist at the World magazine who said, in connection with pastors, house church pastors there in Afghanistan, the word had gotten to them that the Taliban had sent word, we know who you are, we know where you are, we know what you're doing. These are our brothers and sisters in Christ. We need to pray for them. We have, other things at home. We have burdens, just even here in our church family. Surgeries coming up, surgeries postponed for other issues, diagnoses. We've had a lot go on just even this last week, haven't we? And then we have teachers and students getting ready to go to school. A lot of challenge. Always a big deal with that. This year it just seems a little heavier. And as you go through and you start adding up, there's a lot of burdens. 1 Peter, we're told to cast all of our burdens on him because he cares for us. Just kind of as a way of kind of helping us visualize and be mindful of that, can I just ask, if you have a burden that's on you, if you just are feeling burdened in some way, would you indicate that with your hand this morning just so we know to pray? There's a lot of us. Let's pray together. Our Father, we thank you that scripture is not just a suggestion. It's an invitation and a promise. God, when there's things heavy on our hearts, you don't just allow us to bring our cares to you. You call us. You want us to bring our cares to you. So that we're reminded we don't bear our burdens alone. The truth is, we don't have the strength to carry them, but you do. And so you call us to come and to share our burdens, to lay them at your feet so that you can pick them up, so that you can strengthen us, so that you can guide us with wisdom, so that you can give us perfect peace because we know who is in control. And Father, when we pray, we're not just casting out a wish. God, we're coming before the maker of heaven and earth, the one who sees perfectly, who knows perfectly, the one who's able to answer perfectly, the one who is working redemptively and has been through history and will bring about that day when everything is put back right. God, that is why we pray. And so, Father, as we pray, I pray that you would take the burdens from us. Not that they're gone, but that we don't try to carry it in our own strength. We rely on you. And so, Father, as we continue in our worship, as we continue to just remember who you are, God, strengthen us by that. Remind us that you are God. We are not. And you strengthen us and free us to live in that. So let our worship be honoring to you, but also freeing to us. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
You are not a God dependent on any mortal man. You are not a God in need of anything we can give by your plan. That's just the way it is. You are not a God created by human hands. You are not a God dependent on any mortal
God, we don't just say that's true, we know that's true. And so we pray this morning that you would show us how to live with that. Free us to live knowing that's who you are. We thank you. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, this morning we are grateful to, again, get to come and worship. It reminds us what's real, what's true. And this morning we're in our third week, week 3 of Vacation Bible Sundays. And so over this last 3 weeks, we've had our excavation clothes on. We've been digging in deep. We've been unearthing the truth about who Jesus is. And we've seen a lot already. And today we're going to look at an amazing conversation that Jesus has about power. What real power is. There's a lot of ideas about power, but what Jesus has to say is unique. It's worth hearing. But to help us really understand that, first I want you to get in your mind a beautiful red apple. Think about that. Sounds kind of good. Actually, I have one right here. So, beautiful red apple. I mean, and here's the thing, aren't apples like the most perfect fruit ever created? Now, you can disagree and be wrong if you want to, but, I mean, when we think about it, apples are wonderful. They're juicy, they're tasty. I mean, they're good for you. You can bake all kinds of things with them, right? But things aren't always what they seem. It's an important lesson for us to learn, isn't it? Today we're going to see that things aren't always what they seem, and that's an important thing for us to remember. So if you have your Bibles close, let me ask you to go ahead and turn to John chapter 18. And boys and girls, if you're following in your One Big Story Bible, that's going to be on page 1084. I'll just say, if this is going to mess with you like all service long, I will tell you how this is done for a price. So see me afterwards. All right. Well, our boys and girls learned this morning about how Jesus was betrayed and arrested and then ultimately was taken on trial before Pontius Pilate. Now, history tells us a bit about Pilate. We know a fair bit about him. He was the Roman prefect or governor of Judea from about 26 to 36 AD. And we know that he was kind of a mediocre administrator, but he was incredibly brutal. And he utilized the tool of crucifixion a lot to kind of keep people in check. We see him mentioned in several different first century writings. He's mentioned in Philo and Josephus and Tacitus. And so we've known about him for a while, but then in 1961 we had the first bit of physical evidence that an inscription was found that mentioned Pilate as prefect of Judea. And you can see this up here on the screen, right there at the top. The second line there has the last few letters of Pontius and then Pilate. And that was a big deal to finally have that bit of physical evidence to go with the documents that we had already. And then, really cool, just 3 years ago, in November of 2018, there was a ring that was found that mentioned Pilate. If you look here, and it was, we actually found that, archaeologists found that in 1969, and it took till 2018 for them to kind of do like the laser reading to get in and kind of see the engraving. It just kind of has a rust on it. But they could read Pilate there on the ring. At first they thought maybe this is a ring that belonged to Pilate. The opinion is kind of shifted. It's a cheap, like thin copper ring. And so kind of the leading thought now is that it may have belonged to one of Pilate's employees, a paper pusher who like used the ring to stamp Pilate, and on documents and stuff. Jury may still be out on that, but whatever the case, it's just another piece of evidence to add to what we already have about this Roman governor that Jesus goes and stands before on trial. And what we see here in this conversation is just an amazing moment. A conversation about power between this Roman governor with the power of the empire behind him and this very ordinary Jewish peasant, a commoner, a son of a carpenter named Jesus. But we remember things are not always what they seem. So here's what's going on. After the religious leaders bring Jesus to Pilate, Pilate goes to talk with him. Verse 33, Pilate went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Was that your own idea?" Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" You can kind of imagine Pilate here giving him the side eye and scoffing like, "Am I a Jew? Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you've done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." Pilate says, "Okay, I'm being told that you're a king. You ask me, okay, this is my idea. Dude, if you're a king, you've got problems. Your own people just handed me over to you. Your approval rating is not too hot." Jesus says, "No, but you got to understand, my kingdom is different. My kingdom is not of this world." Now, sometimes when we hear that statement, the idea is that God's kingdom is up in heaven, and it doesn't really have anything to do with how we live now. Like, okay, we can live however we want now. We can run things however we want now. And as long as we believe the right things, we go and participate in God's kingdom up in heaven. And that's not what Jesus is saying in this moment. The idea and what he says here is, no, my kingdom is not from this world. My kingdom does not originate from here. It doesn't work the way that other kingdoms do. It doesn't work the way that Rome does and all the other earthly kingdoms that you're familiar with do. If it did, Jesus said, when they came to arrest me, my followers would rise up, we would fight them off, and they would make sure that I go free. That's what Peter tries to do, right? But Jesus stops him, says, "No, Peter, put away your sword. That's not how my kingdom works. We don't do things that way. My kingdom has a different mode of operating." That's part of what Jesus is getting at. Even back earlier when he teaches people how to pray, he says, look, pray like this. "Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." May we operate and live the way that your kingdom works, not the way that we do down here. Jesus is calling to live a different way. He's saying, Pilate, if you think this doesn't work, if you think this doesn't make sense, it's because my kingdom operates in a different way. So Pilate hears, it doesn't make a lot of sense to him. But he does hear one thing that does catch his ear. This "my kingdom" bit. He said, "Oh, okay. So you are a king then," Pilate said. Jesus said, "You say that I'm a king, but in fact, the reason I was born, the reason I came into the world, is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." What is truth? Pilate sneers at him. It's just different. It's a weird thing. Pilate doesn't connect. He goes away scratching his head. Here's this guy that claims to be king, but he sure doesn't seem like one. He just kind of seems like, he's off. Maybe he's crazy, but he's not what Pilate's used to getting when people are coming in like as a threat to Rome. And so he goes back to the Jewish leaders. He says, look, I don't see a problem with this guy. He's just he's a crazy. Y'all can deal with him. I'm not interested in that. But here's the thing. You brought him. Pilate says, "Hey, how about this? We have this custom now where it's Passover. I'll release to you one prisoner. How about I release to you the king of the Jews?" Notice Pilate keeps using the phrase over and over and over again. he suggests to them, how about I release to you the king of the Jews? The Jewish leaders blow up. They say, no, not him. Give us Barabbas instead. We're told here Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. Luke's gospel goes into a little more detail, says that he was an insurrectionist and had been involved in a murder. See, Barabbas, he's a zealot. He's a freedom fighter, an insurrectionist. He's all about trying to take over, kick Rome out, send them back across the ocean, and help establish Israel's great kingdom again. If you want a picture of who Barabbas is William Wallace in Braveheart. We're going to kick them out and we're going to take over again. This is Barabbas. Barabbas is who you'd expect for a king of the Jews candidate. He better fits that bill. So the Jewish leaders, they say, release to us Barabbas. Maybe because he's the kind of leader that they're more looking for. He's the kind of leader they're more comfortable with. So let us go with him. We don't have a problem with him. Things aren't always what they seem. He's the leader they think they want. After this is over, Pilate took Jesus out from the Jews. He goes in chapter 19, verse 1, he takes Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers then twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in a purple robe and went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they slapped him in the face. And Pilate brought him out once more, still wearing the crown and the robe. And they started calling for him to be crucified. And again, Pilate's just like, this doesn't make any sense. This is weird. Why are they getting so worked up about this guy? And he says, look, there's no reason for me to crucify him. Just might as well let him go. They resist, say, no, there is a reason. He claimed to be the Son of God. Crucify him. That's what he deserves. Pilate is shaken up by this because it's just different. And so we read in verse 8 that he was actually afraid. And he went back inside the palace, goes to Jesus, says, "Where do you come from?" he asked him. But Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate asked. "Don't you know that I have the power either to free you or to crucify you? Get on board. Like, I'm the one who's kind of could be on your side. I'm the one who actually could help. You want me on your side. Speak up." Jesus said, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." And when you think about what's going on here, what's really going on, this is wild. This is the Roman governor. This is the guy that has Emperor Tiberius's stamp to rule things. He has the full empire behind him, at his word, at his command. And he's being lectured about power by this prisoner who's been beaten and apparently powerless. But things are not always what they seem. And as we go through the story, we start to see how powerless Pilate really is. He wants to free Jesus. He doesn't see a point in it. It doesn't make sense to him. And he more and more is resistant to the idea of it. Verse 12, from then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." So now Pilate is being outmaneuvered by the crowd, and he wants to let Jesus go. He's got the authority, but he also has a pretty good sense of you don't get too far out in front of the crowd, or they might run you over, and this might be the one that does him in. It's a really strange thing. And Pilate saying, well, I'm not going to die on this hill. I'll crucify enough people. I might as well get on with this one. He brings Jesus out in front of him and again says to him, "Here is your king." I mean, notice every time Pilate is saying, "Here's the king, your king of the Jews," over and over again. The Jewish leaders shouted, take him away, crucify him." "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. Here's the big moment. We have no king but Caesar. So Pilate handed him over to be crucified. And they took Jesus away. And it seems like here that he's lost. It's over. But what have we said? Things are not always what they seem. See, back then when someone was crucified, it was pretty common. Rome would take the charges, like the official, what he'd done wrong, and they would post it so that everybody could see and read as they go by. The crucifixions were done out in public. It wasn't just to punish that one guy, it was to make an example to keep everybody else in line. Kind of like, in school, the teacher will be like, 1,000 sentences for you, and the rest of us are like, I'm not doing that. They do that in a heavier way. So they post, this is what this guy has done, so you can read it and you say, I want to be sure not to do that so I don't end up like that guy. That's common, that's ordinary. Pilate, verse 19, Pilate had a notice prepared and fastened to the cross, and it read, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Many of the Jewish people read the sign because the place where Jesus was crucified. This is right outside the city, like a main road going into the city. The sign was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. The chief priests of the Jews protested to Pilate and said, don't write King of the Jews, but that this man, he claimed to be the King of the Jews. Do that. Pilate answered, no. What I have written, I have written. And the idea, and it's pretty likely here, Pilate means this as an insult. He's insulting the Jewish people, saying, Rome puts to death the King of the Jews. That's what we do. Whatever kings, whatever leaders, whatever would-be threats you have, we can put it down pretty fast. We can stamp it out. It's his way of saying, yeah, you religious leaders, you may have outmaneuvered me on this one, but don't you forget who actually is in charge here. Pilate's going to bully him around still. But for us, we read it differently, don't we? As followers of Jesus, we read this sign, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, and we see what's going on. The spokesman for Rome has just declared who the Messiah is. It's clear. It's obvious. Jesus is the long-awaited King of the Jews. And the Roman governor has just officially declared that. And as you understand this, as you go back, you read, the resurrection changes how we read the whole story. See, the resurrection is the great reversal. Because we know how the story ends, we can go back and we can reread the story, and we see irony throughout. We see that there's a very different thing going on here that's not the way that it normally works. And so Jesus has been hailed and crowned by the Roman governors, and now he's officially declared king by the Roman soldiers. He's hailed, he's crowned, he's robed. By the Roman governor, he's officially declared as king. Pilate is the one who seems to be the most powerful person in the story, but actually we're shown that he's rather pretty powerless. Barabbas seems to be a better candidate for king of the Jews, but he's not. He gets released. We don't hear from him again. Jesus seems to be a powerless prisoner out of control, but he's not. He's faithfully carrying out his mission. The movement he started seems to be done for and over at the end, but it's not. It's just beginning. Over and over and over again, everything that seems to be bad, everything that seems to be out of control, everything that seems to be hopeless, be spinning into oblivion, everything that looks to be a bad ending, actually, as you go back, you see it through the resurrection, you see there's this great reversal going on. And it's not the way that it seems. And it's not the way the disciples would have seen it then. Later, they can go back and they can see this. And even the way that the story is recorded by John, it's like, he's like, wow, I missed this. Can you see the irony here? They keep calling, they don't even call Jesus by his name in trial. It's always the King of the Jews. Pilate's always recognizing who he is, always recognizing his title. We missed it. But this is who he is. And they go through it over and over and over again, and they see it. What looks to be hopeless, what looks to be out of control, actually very much is not out of control. It's always in the control and under the guiding hand and power of God. And what that means for us is, we read this story, and what looks like chaos and what looks like tragedy, because of God's power and wisdom, is not chaos. It's not tragedy. It's a rescue at work. And that changes how we read Jesus, but that also changes how we view our world, isn't it? I mean, it changes how we interpret things in our world. Because now, if this is true, that Jesus is king, if this is true, that he redeems all this, if this is true that what we see here is under the power and wisdom of God, that really does change how we see things going on in our world. It really does change how we look out, and what appears to be chaos to us, what appears to be out of control to us, this is the model or the paradigm for us to go back and say, maybe it's not out of control. If Jesus is king, none of it is. Doesn't mean everything is good, doesn't mean everything is the way it should be, but it's never out of his control. It's never out of the ability of his power and his wisdom to redeem and to rescue and to bring things right. It never is too far gone. And that means we can look at our lives a little differently. Because when we look around, and there's things around us that, yeah, sometimes it looks out of control, doesn't it? Any of you watch the news or scroll through your favorite news site this past week and feel like life was a little out of control? Like, what in the world is going on? You ever feel like you're on a runaway train that's about to just tip over and there's nothing you can do about it? This says we're not. We're not out of control. Because if Jesus is king, and he's at work to carry out God's plan, then all of our world is guided and guarded by the wisdom and power of God. And that's freeing to us. Because we don't have to try to grab control or wonder about how does this work out. Because here in this story, this looks like it's headed for a terrific, awful crash. And at the end of the story is new life. And so for all of us, when we start to look at this as a paradigm for how to view the chaos in our world, what we see is when we feel out of control, we're invited to rest in the wisdom and power of God. We're invited by Jesus to say, you know what? You're not in control, and you don't have to be. It doesn't have to make sense to you. You don't have to see a way to a good ending. You just have to trust the God who sees it all and can bring about a good ending. You just have to remember that this is actually how life works. We're citizens of a kingdom that works differently. A king who is able to redeem the broken. A king who will have the final say and vindicate those who are right. A king who will heal and restore. It's different. It changes things. And so for us, we get caught up on seeing what's all around us. We get distracted and wrapped up in that. And I mean, just this last week, I've felt, anxiety raising like, the thermometer in cartoons where you're just about to pop out the top. And this reminds me, no, I don't have to live that way. Actually, Jesus invites me to go back and say, no, I can trust in the wisdom and power of God. I can rest in the wisdom and power of God. I can remember it doesn't all depend on me. I just need to go back and celebrate Him and say, God, here's my burden, here's my concerns, here's all the stuff that's out of control. And I'm going to lay it down because I get to. That's the gift that He gives to His people. And so this morning as we close, I think the invitation of Jesus is we can lay down our burdens and rest in Him. Let's pray together. Father, I thank You that things are not always what they seem. That sometimes our life seems out of control, but Your word tells us it's not. God, I thank You that Your invitation to us is to take our burdens, to take our anxiety, to take our concerns, to take our fears, to take our hurts, and to be able to lay it at Your feet. To rest in knowing that You are all powerful, that there is no one else who compares to You, no one else who can challenge You, that You are all wise, that when we don't see a way out, You do. When we can't make sense of our world, You can. And that You can guide us in how to live step by step each day. God, we confess, we have this idea that it's our job to muscle through. But we can't. And so, Father, forgive us for trying to carry what was never meant to be our load to carry. Teach us to lay it down and to rest on Your wisdom and Your power, and to live that way each day. God, as we wrap up, help us to hear again, over and over again. When things start to rise up, help us to hear again the words of Jesus. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, if you'd like to learn more about following Jesus, if you want to find rest, if you feel like your whole life has just been carrying that burden and you've never had a place to put it, the invitation Jesus offers is that you can find rest in Him. And if you want to learn more about that, what we'd ask you to do, if you'll take the Connect card that's there in your pew, if you'll just mark, I want to learn more about becoming a Christian. We'd love to talk with you and answer any questions you might have. But there is rest available, and He offers it to us. If you want to learn more about joining our church, you can mark that as well and just place the card in the plate as we go out. But we would love to have an opportunity just to talk with you and kind of help you figure out whatever the next steps are God has for you on your journey with Him. If few things that I want to remind you of. Of course, after the service, I'll be hanging out here at the front. Our deacons will be as well if you have prayer needs. And then also, in the weeks ahead, we have a few exciting things coming up. Parents, I want to remind you, don't forget to sign up your kids for Mini Music Day Camp. That's going to be on August the 28th from 1 to 4. They'll learn the music for VBS, and then we'll sing here in our service. It's entirely free, but we do need you to register for that. And then on the next day, the last day of the month, August 29th, we're going to have a celebration time for our service as we finished Vacation Bible Sundays. We're going to have a meal together, and it's entirely free, but we do need you to sign up for that as well. And so you can register either online or by calling our church office, and that'll be just a good time for us to celebrate together. I hope you'll take advantage of that. Finally, ladies, don't forget that our ladies' Bible studies are starting soon. We have Wednesday morning and Thursday evening. No? Tuesday morning and Thursday evening. Okay. And both studies are the same, so it's whatever time slot works best for you. And the study is all about how Romans 8:28, how God works together for good things who follow, or all things for those of us who follow Jesus. And so it's a really great study, and it helps us see everything through God's wisdom and power, how God is at work in our lives to direct our lives. And so you'll want to check that out. Pat and Sandra are going to be out either side if you want to pull them aside. And just if you have questions, you can talk to them about it. But we do need you to sign up if you're going to participate in that. Well, again, thank you for worshiping with us online. We trust that you have a great week.